Well, hey, it's Matt Steen, co-founder of Chemistry Staffing, with another chemistry conversation. Excited today. I'm joined by Jake Moore and Stephen Dupree. So Jake is the executive pastor at Ignite Church in Greenville, North Carolina. Stephen is the communications pastor, and really kind of I don't know if excited is the right word, but looking forward to a conversation about just something that's going on at their church. So Ignite, like many churches, has gone through the process of closing and then reopening, and recently had to shut down again. And so really would love, Jake, Stephen, for you, the two of you guys, just to kind of share a little bit of the story about what happened, and we can kind of go from there. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds good.
So Jake, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you guys opened up, everything was going well. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, so we did our very best to create a plan like most people did, researching data and just trying to figure out what the best fit is for our church, our community. We really tried to evaluate community readiness as well as church readiness. We did survey our church as far as like, are you guys ready to come back into physical in-person gatherings? The results of that survey were pretty astounding to be yes. As soon as the doors were open, we're going to be there. Wow. And so we were excited about that. So we did launch back June the 7th. And what we did, we increased our service numbers. We did social distancing in our auditorium, chairs and seating arrangement. We also, hand sanitizer stations, all kinds of precautions, and having the building fogged with sanitizing spray. It's all these things to help say that we are doing everything with integrity in order to be health and safety minded for our people. We launched back at about 61% of our pre-COVID attendance, which statistically is pretty good right now. Yeah. So we were excited about that. And things were going really well. What happened recently, though, is that one of our kid volunteers did test positive for COVID-19. That was a result of an employment connection with a boss who later on decided or found out that they tested positive. So that was like on Friday that they had interaction with that employer. Sunday, that volunteer served large group kid worship, also in one of our kid rooms. And then on Monday, he was made aware of the positive test from the employer, which obviously radars went up that we need to be careful. He was very closely related to some people that were on our leadership team, including one of our pastoral staff. Oh. And so long story short, what happened is he went and got tested and it came back positive.
Oh no.
Yep.
So
that's
no. Yeah. And that's what nobody wants to hear in this season, right?
Correct.
So
absolutely.
So you hear that, and then I'm sure the first reaction is, oh no, or something worse that you had to repent for. But what's your next reaction? Are you panicking? What are you guys, what's going through your leadership team's mind when that information hits you?
Yeah, I would say luckily enough, we created a plan that created the opportunity to go back and forth in the event that something happened. We didn't want to make it so rigid that we couldn't, bounce back as far as steps or phases. And so we knew that if that was the case, that we would have to go back a step, which would be going back to online only. And so we knew that was going to be the next step. What we didn't know was how do we communicate that? And then also for how long, what does that look like as far as what the CDC recommendations and things like that. And that's where Stephen comes in as far as like communication and how we were able to pull that off with our teams.
Yeah. So you guys already had a plan in place to be able to shut back down. And I'm guessing at that point you already were you doing like Eventbrite or something like that to be able to keep track of who was in place? Yeah,
we were doing registrations.
Yeah,
good. We had tracing. We were able to know who was here, who was in those kids' rooms, all that kind of information.
Great. And so then the job comes to be able to communicate this to the entire congregation, right?
Yeah. So fun for us, the fact that Jake left out is Jake left for vacation that Tuesday afternoon. So I don't know how that God just was laughing at us a little bit. But So it was myself and the remainder of the executive team basically huddled in my office in different places throughout the day Wednesday, and it was kind of a trickle of information. So first we found out, someone tested positive. Then we started to answer the questions of what rooms was he involved in. Later, it came out, like Jake said, he was involved in large group. He was involved in the kids' classroom. So long story short, it was like he had contact potentially with pretty much everybody involved with kids ministry,
Wow.
kids and volunteers on Sunday morning. So not like direct contact, but just vicinity, so we determined pretty quickly that this was not one of those, like, he had, 2 or 3 interactions and that was it, and we just contact those people. This was something that was broad. We had to let parents know. We had to let those volunteers know. And this impacted basically, 50+% of our church.
Wow.
So from there, it shifted to, we have to respond. We have to react. And it turned to, like Jake said, you go to the Google, you go to the Facebook, you go to all the Facebook groups, and it's like, we can't be the first people to have encountered this. We can't be the first people to have asked this question, but how do we respond? What are the proper things we need to do? So we looked into, from a legal standpoint, what guidelines do we need to go by? And through that process landed where basically we needed to convey the facts, but not get into telling parents how they needed to go about, testing kids or something like that.
Right.
We needed to just say, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. This is how we're responding. That's what we have for you. And as a result of that, we decided to, for the next 2 weeks, to go back to online only. And then at the time, it was Wednesday. Like I said, Jake was on vacation. He was, hours away physically. So it's like, instead of trying to figure something out right now, we're just going to put out a statement that says, this is what happened. We put together, like Jake said, we had the registrations. So we knew what kids were there on Sunday. We knew what volunteers were there on Sunday. So we were able to contact the exact parents to say, hey, your kids were exposed to a leader that tested positive for COVID. So like, we were able to touch all the bases as far as, but that is a testament to some of, our exec team, especially Jake, helping put together that plan in place, making sure we registered. So I know I've seen some churches saying, like, well, why do we need to register for church, whatever. It's like, this is the example of why it's a great reason to have people register. I know it can be aggravating, but it is well worth it in a situation like this. We weren't guessing what kids were there on Sunday morning. We knew exactly who was there. So we, long story long, we ended up making official video with Pastor Jason, the lead pastor here, and made him just set him up in the sanctuary camera, just let him take a minute, 2 minutes, and just describe what happened. And then in a more official statement, we typed it up, put that on our website as a post, and attached that link to the video, put it on social media, spread it all over the place as wide as we could. And then from there, it went to the different team leaders and said, share this with your teams, let all your leaders know so they can tell the people on their teams who they're leading. Just spread this as far as you can. And we will be evaluating that, that 2-week timeline, going from there, seeing how people are responding to this. We don't know from here. It went to, we can maybe bounce back to Jake, all of our, from there, it's like different people had to get tested, different things had to go down from there, just moving forward. But from a communication side, that's kind of how we handled that.
Yeah, and so let me clarify something. So you individually emailed out to all the parents and all the people that were directly impacted by that, or did you send the same email out to everybody that showed up on Sunday?
The social media was our main send out to everybody.
Yeah.
But then we did through the registrations, we used Planning Center. And so we knew exactly who was there, and we did send out an email directly to everybody that was there on Sunday with the same information, but it was just directly contacted to them versus a broader
Right.
stroke.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Well, very cool. And so everybody was alerted. Now Jake, as the executive pastor on vacation, I mean, one, everybody wants to know, did you come back or did you finish? But then, I mean, how do you lead a staff team through that? How do you guys, care for a congregation that's probably ripping their hair out, saying, oh, am I impacted by this? I mean, what happens then?
Luckily, we have a great team here, so I stayed and was able to take a little bit of time away. All of our staff did get tested, and the kid volunteers that were there on Sunday did get tested as well. Now, the problem with that is there's such a delay in the results, and so that's where I think like some of the biggest problems of leading comes because like the fear of the unknown. Like, I don't know if I have this, I'm not sure, and it's going to take 5 to 7 days for you to find out, and so some people got the results back quickly and it was easy to like celebrate negative results there, and then other people still lingering on. And so luckily we use Asana, we use project management, we are able to communicate well with our team and staff, so we're able to share that information. We have our team leaders as far as in the kids ministry, kids pastor down, they do a great job of just communicating with one via many platforms of communication. The one thing that I've seen personally is that when you're proactive and you're not hesitant in these events of crisis or just chaos, is that people respect you a lot for that. And so generally speaking, the feedback that we've gotten so far isn't, I can't believe this happened, which I expected I knew this would happen. But what we've seen and what we've gotten back so far is, man, thank you for being proactive. Thank you guys for thinking about our church. We're praying, we're expecting God to do great things. So what we tend to think of as possibly being negative, it's turning out so far to be more positive. And that's just because of being proactive, having a plan, communicating that plan really well, not hesitating and not trying to hide anything, because it would be really easy just to pretend like it didn't happen. And so we've seen some positive things come out of just good communication.
Very cool. So as results trickling back in, I mean, is the spread limited, or are you finding that there's people that can directly trace cases of this back to the event on Sunday? Or
the blessing behind it all is that it is literally confined to 4 individuals.
Wow.
And so there have been a couple others who tested positive. However, their connection wasn't from Sunday morning. It was from other means. So these 4 individuals, for instance, 2 are roommates. One's dating one of the roommates of somebody. Another was hanging out with them for the entire weekend. They drove in a car for 2 hours on Saturday. So like it was literally because they were together constantly for a long period of time. What we're not seeing is the fact that, I sat across the desk from one of those individuals twice after Sunday. And it's not like just being in the room with them caused a positive case. However, it just create that fear, but so far we've seen that it's just pretty much confined to those 4 individuals.
Well, that's cool. That's a relief. God has protected you guys well. So, the question is going to come up, what's next? When do you guys go back to meeting, or are you kind of pushing pause for a little while? I mean, how are you guys approaching what this next season looks like for y'all?
Our first step was, we got our building sprayed again and everything. And we did 2 weeks. So that way nobody's in the building. And literally by the time it's Sunday to Sunday, it's 3 weeks worth of time. So 3 weeks saying that we're not going to be meeting physically. We can go back to online. Luckily, we have a great online presence from Stephen and our worship pastor, Chris, and so many others who worked so well to make that a super positive experience for our people. And then so our plan is that we're going to go back to in-person gatherings on the 12th. So that is 2 Sundays off, but 3 weeks away from the building. So as far as the isolation in the 14 days, those kind of things, given enough window for that. And then we'll see see where God goes. We're still doing registrations. We are upping our cleaning, upping our sanitation. We're requiring volunteers to wear masks, which we did not do that at first. We are going to do temp checks of our volunteers, which we did not do that at first. And so, however, those 4 individuals were totally asymptomatic, just as a side note. So we wouldn't have even known in the first place when they came in. But just upping those kind of measures so that we can make sure we're communicating health and safety is number 1 priority for our people.
That's great.
Some good stuff to that too.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, I mean, checking everybody's temperature. I mean, I've in the past, before this happened, for a couple of weeks, I was going to a gym, and every time I walk in the door, they're taking my temperature, and I could just not have a temperature but still be positive, but it does make certain people feel good, So a lot of that stuff is for peace of mind, but we did determine, just as an exec team, that moving forward, we're not going to treat it with cookie cutter, responses. That just like this situation, it's going to be addressed situationally. It's going to be addressed, if we did have some sort of case that maybe was really isolated to a certain area or something like that, and there was not a lot of people involved, it might not warrant shutting everything down. Right. It just really depends. But spreading is something that's hard to keep confined in situations. So it's like you just kind of got to weigh out every situation individually. I would definitely encourage churches, that are watching this, don't try to cookie cutter this. Don't try to make it a one size fits all. We were very fortunate in this situation that the spread was really confined to those individuals, and it was really more of a separate thing rather than Sunday morning, everybody else on Sunday morning. I've talked to a guy 2 days ago who he directly hugged the guy who tested positive for COVID, and he tested negative. Wow. So it's something where we've been very fortunate, very fortunate. It could have been a lot worse in terms of spread, and that would have probably impacted some of our timeline even. We've been able to say with confidence, because of the steps we've taken, we're going to be able to get back open sooner rather than later. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it, huh? So
yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna ask, this is a heads up, I'm gonna ask Jake and Stephen to share, a last word of wisdom here in a minute, but I really appreciated, Stephen, the work that you did on the website, communicating this stuff and pushing this stuff out. And I guess it's going to be up for at least another week or 10 days or so. So it's ignitechurch.com. Go and check it out. You can see the video, you can see the messaging that they've put behind it. Pretty clear and concise, and just saying, hey, this is what went on. So good on you guys for communicating that well and getting the message out. So I want to be respectful of y'all's time. So, before we finish up, anything in particular that you just want to put out there and say, hey, if you're wrestling through this, or if you're thinking through the potential for how to work through something like this, any words of wisdom that you'd share with people that are watching this?
Yeah, I'll steal what Stephen said a minute ago, and just the fact of addressing situations as the situation occur. Don't be cookie cutter. Don't try to force something into a box that's not there, and just making it, what fits for your church. And so one of the things we really tried to evaluate is our community readiness and our church readiness. And so you have to evaluate those two things when you're trying to make those decisions. And so it might be beneficial for you to hold off. It may be beneficial for you to come back. It might be fine for you to come back sooner. It's just, you have to evaluate those things. Obviously, saturated in prayer and communication and advice from the people that are a part of your teams. So it's not one person running everything. It's a team effort, collaborative effort. You've got to seek advice from others.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you're saying one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
So how about you, Stephen?
That's great. One thing I would say, just kind of attribute some to Jake, but also, like he said, a team effort. Numbers are your best friend during this kind of stuff as well. You don't need to be living in hypothetical world in this, and it's very easy to do that, especially with the widespread overall fear of the coronavirus in general, and the fear of just you're not going to please everybody. So numbers are your best friend. That's one of those things, like I said before, registrations are your friend. They help you. They give you real numbers. They give you those things like Jake's throwing out percentages. You know, we had 61% of our normal attendance back on day one. If you're not keeping up with some of those things, when things are good, you're not going to know when something bad happens. So, you know, try to, if you don't have those systems in place to keep up with some of those things, you need to look at starting to try to do some of those things, because they're going to really, really help you out in situations like this, because it's going to be very easy to let fear lead the way and lead you to making decisions rather than making good, informed decisions based on facts and not hypothetical situations of what could be or what might happen. So that's something that's been a big benefit to us, I know, and I know would be benefit to others.
That's great. That's great. So Jake, Stephen, thank you guys so much for just sitting down with me and sharing a little bit of y'all story. Grateful that this has been as minor as it has been. I mean, you hate saying that because there's 4 people, but grateful that this has not been a full blown issue. Yeah. And so much of that I'm convinced is because of the work that you guys put in going into this. So thank you guys for that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.